Okay, so today we're going to talk about dividing polynomials. Okay, so when you divide polynomials, we're going to use the division algorithm the same way that you did when you learned in third grade how to divide numbers. The same concept applies here because really this is just a number. It's an algebraic number, but it's a real number, right? If I stick in a number for m and simplify this, I'm going to get a number. And if I put the same m value here, I'm going to get another number. So I'm really dividing numbers, and so we know how to divide numbers from way back when. But it's a little bit more complicated because I don't know what these numbers are and I have variables, and so this is going to be long division for polynomials. Okay, but you'll see the same technique slightly changed though. Okay, now one of the things you need to do is you need to make sure that they're written in increasing order, or excuse me, not increasing, decreasing order. Okay. So, I'm going to show you how to do this one. So we're going to take this polynomial and divide it by this polynomial. So we set up our polynomial, our division, the same way we normally do when we're dividing. So we take our dividend, which is here, okay, oops. And then we take our divisor and put it here. Okay, now here's where it changes a little bit. Now I'm not going to explain or prove why this works and how it is the division algorithm. But it's sort of like using the distributive property. So the first thing we're going to do is we ask ourselves, what do we need to multiply this by in order to get this value? Because the key is we want to, when we get to the subtraction part here, we want this to go away. Okay, so what do we need to multiply 2m by to get 4m cubed? And the answer is 2m squared. So we put 2m squared here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the distributive property. I'm going to multiply this by this and put the result here. Similar to the algorithm, right, that we know. So this times this gives me what? Well, I'm going to do it by distribution. So this times this, oh wait a minute, big surprise, right? I did that on purpose. So we want this times this gives me this, but then -1 times this gives me a minus 2m squared. We want to make sure that the degrees line up, the exponents line up. So now I'm going to subtract this whole thing. Well, if I subtract this whole thing, if I distribute the negative, this becomes a -4, that becomes a plus. Look at this. This cancels, and what do I get? I get -8 plus 2 gives me a -6m squared. Now, guess what? I do the whole thing over again. I ask myself, okay, what do I need to multiply 2m by to get this? Well, it's going to be a -3m. So minus 3m. Now, I'm going to multiply. So 2m times this gives me a -6m squared, which is exactly what I expect to get. Because I did this on purpose, right? I manufactured this. Now I'm going to take -1 times this, and it gives me a plus 3. Oh, hold on, I forgot to drop down. You drop down the next one. Forgot my drop down. Okay, now, so after you subtract, you want to drop down. I forgot that part, remember? So you divide, multiply, subtract, and drop down, okay? Okay, so -1 times this gives me a 3m. And now I subtract the whole thing. So if I subtract the whole thing, remember, this is going to change the signs. So this is going to go to 0, and I'm going to end up with a negative, a minus here, which is going to give me a 2m. Okay? And again, if you don't see it, just distribute the -1 here. Distribute the negative. So if I distribute the negative, this becomes positive, and this becomes a subtraction. And so these cancel and I get 2m. Now I'm going to drop down the 6 and do it again. Okay, and now that I've reached the end, this is the last time I'm going to do it. So again, what do I need to multiply 2m by to get 2m? 1. So I'm going to have a plus 1 here. So that means if I multiply, I'm going to get 2m, and then negative 1 times positive 1 is a negative 1. And so if I subtract, now I'm going to get what? I get a 0 here, and I get a 7 here, and I'm done, and I have a remainder of 7. So I get a remainder of 7. So now, how do I write this? What's the answer? Well, just like when we divide numbers, right? If I divided 7 divided by 3, well, how many times does 3 go into 7? Twice. I multiply, 3 times 2 is 6. I subtract, and I get 1, and I'm done. I get a remainder of 1, and how do I write this? Well, I go back, right? I go backward. So what do I need to do? 3 times 2. So basically, 7 divided by 3 equals what? 3 times 2 plus the remainder 1. Or, do I want to do it that way? No, that's not the way I want to do it. Three divided by 2 will give me what? Or 7 divided by 3 will give me what? I get 2 plus what? What's the remainder? 1 divided by 3, right? It's 1 divided by 3. So I get 2 plus 1/3. That's what I wanted to write down. Okay, so what's the answer? 7 divided by 3 is 2 plus 1/3. So let's write this answer the same way. So what's the final answer? So let me write these pieces down. So we get 4m cubed minus 8m squared plus 5m plus 6 divided by 2m minus 1. That's what we're doing. So what does that equal? Hold on a second. So this is the quotient. So the quotient is 2m squared minus 3m plus 1, and the remainder is 7. Okay? So what do we get? When we divide these two, what did we get? So that's what we have to do. We wanted to divide these two. So what was our answer? Well, when we divided by, we got this plus a remainder. Well, what do? Well, the remainder still has to be divided by this. So this divided by this gives us this number plus the remainder divided by the divisor again. So this is 2m minus 1. And so this is our answer. This is our whole number, and this is our fractional part. Okay, just like if I have 7 divided by 3, that's going to equal 2 whole numbers, right? Plus a fractional part of 1/3. So we could do the same thing with polynomials. This number divided by this number will give us a quotient plus a remainder divided by the divisor. Okay? Have a good night.